Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, myself and Mr. Evan Wanish over here are going to be going over the initial 53-man roster for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Evan, let's just go ahead and dive right into it. First, taking a look at the quarterback situation and the running back situation. At quarterback, you've got Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. At running back, Rachaad White, Chase Edmonds, Keyshawn Vaughn, and Sean Tucker. Thoughts on that group?
Yeah, and no real surprises. I think there's some that maybe thought John Walford would stick on the 53-man roster. He got cut. Is most likely going to be back on the practice squad, so I don't think John Walford's going to be going anywhere. But I think there was some that maybe thought that he would stick around on the 53. But as far as the running back room goes, no real surprises. I know that we had talked about on the channel, Keyshawn Vaughn potentially being a surprise cut. He was able to make it due to his special teams ability that they cut Ronnie Brown and Patrick Laird instead. So, yeah, no real shockers there.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I personally thought that maybe the Bucs would carry three quarterbacks, given the nature of that emergency quarterback rule and all the different things that are associated with that. But if Wolford does make it on the practice squad, then it's fine. I mean, you basically just have him there just in case. Anyway, running back room again: Rachaad White, Chase Edmonds. Edmonds kind of being your veteran of the group, right? Keyshawn Vaughn, Sean Tucker kind of round out that room. Um, a fine group, really no surprises there. Maybe one could have said, like, Sean Tucker, has he done enough? Because he's been hurt throughout most of this process. But the coaching staff does like him a lot, to the point where I believe even he could possibly get some opportunities in the regular season. So, you know, not too surprising, all things considered, there with both of those rooms. Moving on, Evan, to the wide receiver room, we've got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Trey Palmer, Devin Tompkins, and Raheem Jarrett. At the tight end room, Kate Otten, Ko Keefe, Payne Durham, and David Wells. I keep on wanting to say Josh Wells whenever I see the last name Wells, but one thing that's interesting to me is only five wide receivers in that group, right? The Buccaneers opted for four tight ends instead of five wide receivers, and it's a bit of an interesting decision. I think that Kate Otten and Payne Durham were both guys who you pretty much expected to make this roster. Maybe one could have said that Payne Durham may have been like a surprise cut, kind of. David Wells had a really good preseason, or I guess more so a really good training camp. He even caught a touchdown in a preseason game. Ko Keefe's interesting to me, just because of how limited he is and what he can do, right? But with the Buccaneers wanting to run the football more, maybe they value that blocking ability more. So that is interesting. But only five wide receivers. I know a lot of people were surprised that David Moore was cut. I still think that he does have a future with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, be it on the practice squad or eventually the active roster. But shout out to Raheem Jarrett, man. Like, that dude was just really good throughout the preseason and training camp and whatnot. And he was really a guy that carved out a role for himself. Where, Evan, I think that a guy like Jarrett could even be pushing, wide receiver four type of snaps. Like, he really has been really impressive. So, what's your thoughts on those two groups?
Yeah, a little bit surprised that they only kept five in the receiver room. David Moore being cut. Could be back on the practice squad, could be like a John Walford type on that practice squad. So I don't know if you've seen the end of David Moore, but I figured they would keep six, and I thought Moore would be that guy. As far as the tight end room, David Wells had a really good training camp, just like you mentioned. And I think that matters. Ko Keith, I thought maybe he would have been a cut candidate, but I think they see a role for him somewhere in this offense. And yeah, as far as Jarrett goes, he could challenge for some snaps as the season goes on. He in limited opportunities. I mean, he only played two of the three preseason games. He was hurt for the first one, so he made the most of his limited opportunities there, and hopefully he can continue to progress towards that.
Moving on now to the offensive line, and I want to take a minute to talk about this group, right? Because it's an interesting group. You have Tristan Wirfs at left tackle, Matt Filer at left guard. Robert Hainsey is now your new starting center with the news of Ryan Jensen being out. We have discussed that here on the channel. You then have Cody Mock as your starting right guard. Luke Gedeke is your starting right tackle. Now with the backups, you only have four, which is fine given the versatility of some of these guys. Nick Leverett, who in my opinion had a pretty tough preseason, just didn't look super great, but he does have guard and center versatility there. Coaching staff really likes to have that. Brandon Walton, is going to be basically a backup swing tackle in a way for the Bucs. They've liked what he's been able to do in the past. Even started a couple games last year for the team whenever Donovan Smith went out with injury. Basically, kind of like a new Josh Wells in a way. You've got Justin School there as well, which I think he's also another guy who could maybe play both tackle positions, but I think he's pretty much slotted in at left tackle right now, backup left tackle. And apparently he's been helping out Tristan Wirfs a lot in terms of making that transition over to left tackle. And then you have Aaron Stinney, a veteran, but also a guy, much like in the case of Nick Leverett, Evan, who has been struggling a little bit in the preseason. I don't know if that's coming back from injury or just general struggles or whatever it may be, but I think that with this unit, the starters, we've talked about the starters before, right? And that's just, gosh, you could probably make a whole separate video talking about those guys and the potential, risks and all these guys playing different positions. But with the backups, you have a lot of versatility there, right, Evan?
No, you definitely do. And I mean, Nick Leverett, who really hadn't played center much before this preseason, did struggle a little bit. But it is a bonus that he can play center, I guess. He was mostly a guard. It was a starting guard for the Buccaneers last year for a good part of the season. So I do think he's a bit better at guard, but he can play center, and I think that's a bonus. So as far as Brandon Walton goes, like you said, sort of in the Josh Wells mold now, as Josh Wells has moved on. Um, their depth for a little bit now along the offensive line has been a little shaky. If a guy like Tristan Wirfs were to go down, I mean, Tristan Wirfs is not a easily replaceable player. He's very irreplaceable, but I question a lot of the depth on the offensive line because there are taking a lot of chances, especially with Ryan Jensen being out now, and your lack of experience along the offensive line. Luke Gedeke going to a new position now, Cody Mock being a rookie, and Tristan Wirfs going to a new position. So a little bit concerning, but we will see how they hold up this season.
Yeah, and this is something we've talked about too, like off screen essentially or off video, where that could be a position group where they may look to add maybe like a veteran to their practice squad or something, some type of guy like that, just to have some more insurance policies, get some guys up to speed throughout the season, just in case you do need them. But moving on to the defensive side of things, Evan, let's take a look at the defensive line. You have Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey, Greg Gaines, Logan Hall, Will Golston made the cut, and also Mike Green made the cut. Shout out to Mike Green. Basically replaced Pat O'Connor and what his role is. But I thought that Mike Green had a really, really good preseason in terms of just getting consistent pressure and just being a good player all around, going up against some of those backups in those preseason games. Will Golston, I know me and you had talked about the idea of, he could have been cut, but based on how much he was playing, late into those preseason games, but he was still generating good pressure. And I know obviously he's been a starter for so long in his career and he's going up against backups. So you would assume he'd be doing good against those backups, but still, I think that gives you another starting caliber guy in that list. You got Kalijah Cansey, who we haven't seen, right? He's been hurt, and we don't know if he's going to be ready for week one. The assumption is yes, but not 100% sure. And then Logan Hall is in there as well. And obviously Greg Gaines is in there also. Greg Gaines, free agent edition, just a big body type of guy. Logan Hall is an interesting guy who, if I'm being honest, Evan, hasn't really jumped off the page too much in terms of ability so far throughout this offseason and preseason. So thoughts on the defensive line?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a lot of names there, and Kalijah Cansey, it does suck that he couldn't play at all in the preseason. Hopefully, he's good for the regular season. You mentioned Will Golston. I do think it's important to not only have a veteran, but have a veteran who's well familiar with this system. Will Golston has been here throughout Todd Bowles' entire run in Tampa Bay, so he knows what Bowles is looking for in his defensive lineman. And there's a lot of turnover there. I mean, there really is. So, Pat O'Connor was a cut. A lot of people, I think, were surprised by that, but I think that's due to Mike Green playing as well as he did. So, as far as Logan Hall goes, yeah, I mean, you're hoping he flashes during the regular season, right? But we're really hoping entering year two, you're going to be going up against some maybe not so great competition in the preseason, maybe a flash a little bit. And he really didn't hear his name called much. So hopefully it turns for him in the regular season. But so far, Logan Hall right now, probably, hey, it has to be better. And I think he knows that, and the Buccaneers know that.
And I will say too, like this is a bit of a crowded room, right? Like Vita Vea's there, Kalijah Cansey, obviously recent first round pick, Logan Hall, a guy who you expect to step up, Greg Gaines, pretty like low key free agent addition though, but you kind of expect him to be in that rotation. And Will Golston, you expect him to obviously be in that rotation. So like it is still going to be a little bit of like a scrap there for snaps and opportunities and whatnot. So we'll see which guys get opportunities and when. But outside edge rushing linebackers and inside linebackers, Evan. Firstly, at outside linebacker, we have got Shaq Barrett, Jotron Shoenka, Anthony Nelson, Yaya Diaby, Cam Gill, and Marquise Watts are your outside linebackers. They went with 6 there. Then at inside linebacker, you've got Levante David, Devin White, Servassier Dennis, and KJ Britt. The only Marquise Watts had such a good preseason and just camp. Like, you kind of knew he was going to make the roster, right? A little surprised that JJ Russell didn't get in there. Maybe he'll get an opportunity, like if he does clear waivers or whatever it may be. I obviously think the Bucs would welcome him back with open arms to the practice squad. But he's a guy who I could even see getting an opportunity elsewhere, maybe as like a third or maybe like a fourth linebacker or a fifth linebacker somewhere, or maybe even on another team's practice squad. Um, and then also, again, like the idea of Barrett, JTS, Nelson, Diaby, that's not surprising. David, White, Dennis, Britt. That's also not too surprising. Besides maybe Britt, you could say would maybe have been like a surprise cut. Cam Gill was interesting. I thought he did some good things in this preseason, but didn't know if they were going to carry 6 outside linebackers. They did decide to go with that, so they're going to have a really healthy rotation there. Evan, your thoughts on the two groups here?
Yeah, I think a guy like Cam Gill was really aided by um, draft pick Jose Ramirez not being able to play much. I believe he only played a handful of snaps on Saturday, has been dealing with an injury throughout training camp. So really wasn't as available as I think the Buccaneers would have liked him. So that really helped Cam Gill's chances. Felt like he was battling with Jose Ramirez for that final spot there. And I think Ramirez will end up back on the practice squad, so we'll be able to get to see a little bit more of him. But yeah, I am surprised that JJ Russell got cut. I think they just maybe valued KJ Britt on special teams a little bit more. I think they're going to try and keep JJ Russell on the practice squad. Maybe difficult after the preseason he had, but hopefully he's able to, because I think JJ Russell could be a pretty solid depth piece.
Moving on now to the secondary, Evan, and man, I don't like this is the one where it's the most like interesting to me, if that makes sense, for cornerback and safety. At cornerback, you've got Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Zion McCollum. You've got Christian Izien, who is presumably going to be your nickel corner. I believe Todd Bowles had announced that he
Yes.
is the starting nickel. You've got Josh Hayes, 6th round draft pick by the Bucs, and then you have got Derek Pitts Jr. At safety, Evan, you've got Antoine Winfield Jr., Ryan Neal. D. Delaney has officially just made the full switch over to safety, apparently. And you've got Kayvon Merriweather there as well. So Nolan Turner was let go. That was interesting. And on the back half of this secondary, specifically in that cornerback room, Evan, lot of inexperience. A lot. After you get past Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, there's not a lot there in terms of meaningful NFL snaps, right? Because Zon McCollum's going into year number 2 when he didn't play a lot in year number 1 or necessarily play well in year number 1. Christian Izien, undrafted free agent, is now your starting nickel corner. Josh Hayes is in his rookie year. Derek Pitts, undrafted free agent, is going into his rookie year. It's just a lot of rookies there, man. And I get it with the salary cap limitations that the Buccaneers had. Like, some position had to give, right? And it was going to be, apparently it was the back half of that cornerback room. D. Delaney, I honestly think is a pretty solid player. Personally, if it was me, I probably would have kept him at cornerback just for more veteran experience there. Honestly, if it was up to me, I would say probably D. Delaney would be your starting nickel, but that's not the route they're going. D. Delaney stays at safety. He had a pretty good preseason. Kayvon Merriweather had some good moments in there as well. Evan, thoughts on the secondary?
Yeah, you mentioned the inexperience in the corner room. And as we look at it here, it's not like Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis have been Iron Men in their career. They have missed time. Carlton Davis in 2021 missed 7 games. Last year, he missed 4 games, and Jamel Dean missed 2 games last year. So there is more likely than not going to be some games where the secondary may not look so pretty. And the thing that really, I think, would scare me is that the Buccaneers, I don't expect the Buccaneers pass rush to be so elite that it can mask a lot of secondary mistakes. So the Bucs are hoping to find a diamond in the rough, like a Christian Isian there. I mean, he came in and undrafted free agent, earned a nickel job, and I think that speaks volumes to how much they like him. And after the first preseason game, Todd Bowles was saying how Christian Isian was the front runner for the nickel job. So they really like what he's done, and it is a little bit worrisome though, because like I said, Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, history will tell us that they can miss time. And when they do, it's might not be so pretty. Zion McCollum is a pretty raw player still, has the traits, but is a pretty raw player. And to start the season, there's some doubt whether Antoine Winfield will even be available quite yet. He also missed 4 games last year with an injury. So hopefully the secondary won't be ravaged by injuries. Hopefully they keep good health. Because if they don't, it could be a long year for the defense.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be where, you know, you see so many veteran corners and veteran safeties cut around the league. That's one where honestly I could see the Bucks adding one of each, right? Just a guy or two there, just in case, right? Just get him up to speed on the defense for a couple weeks, and then you can possibly elevate him or promote him if you need him to. That's kind of the route that I would want to see the team take, but we'll see if they do end up doing that or if they really just have that much trust in these guys growing and developing and getting experience very, very quickly. Finally, Evan, I might as well talk about it. Special teams, Jake Camarda at punter. You have got Chase McLaughlin at kicker and Zach Triner at long snapper. I mean, this is kind of something that's been set in stone for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean that's no so ever since the only battle there was Chase McLaughlin versus Rodrigo Blankenship. As soon as that one ended, yeah, there was no surprises that this was going to be your special teams unit. Zach Triner's been with the team for a long time, so he'll continue to be a long snapper as well. So yeah, no surprises there.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that you could really say about that is like maybe they would put a kicker on the practice squad at some point as a
Yeah,
just in case type of thing.
hmm
Maybe that guy could even be a Ryan Suckup. Who knows? I mean, he's still out there, but
he
um,
is.
no. So like that's really the only thing, and we'll be having a separate video talking about the practice squad once it's like finalized because there's gonna be so many different parts, man. Like so many different things going on. Veterans are gonna become available, former draft picks are going to become available. Like there's a lot going on with that, so it's going to be a lot to pay attention to. Going to be a lot to kind of watch over, and obviously we'll have it covered all here on the channel. But guys, let us know your thoughts and opinions about this 53-man roster down in the comment section below. We would love to hear it. Thank you again to Evan for not just being on, but also helping out with the content here on the channel. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. And in the next video, we will be talking to you guys about the practice squad, so hopefully you guys are all ready for that. But anyway, guys, as always, we will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.